Welcome to the Humanist Podcast. I'm your host, Ken Stearns. Join us on a journey where we unravel the intricacies of workplace dynamics. Hello, everybody. My name's Ken Stearns, the host of The Humanist, and welcome to the show. A beautiful Thursday here in Portland, Oregon. We've got some sunshine, which is kind of a rarity, in between the rainstorms. Great guest today, Lauren Drummond-Dale. Welcome, Lauren.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for taking time out of your day and to be a guest. So we're gonna talk today a little bit, through what is it to be a humanist, or what is it to be in search and pursuit of flourishing. Sorry, pursuit of flourishing, and really talk a little bit around Lauren's career and her life experience in the career, and we'll just kind of weave in and out of these topics for 45, 50 minutes, Lauren, and see where we end up.
Sounds great, Ken.
Yeah. So, as a kind of tradition, I've been kicking these off without too much background. I kick these off with a question from the jar typically. And the jar is 444 questions that I curated for my podcast called The Jar, not surprisingly. And The Jar was a great podcast that I ran for 2 years, traveling around the country, visiting 96 cities, interviewing about 323 people in their homes with this set of cards. And fantastic experience. So now it's kind of a joy for me to pull these questions and reflect on them for myself, because in those 300 and something interviews, I think I may have only ever answered live 1 or 2 questions. So this is already, just a week or 2 into this podcast, I've already answered more of my own questions on record than ever before. This is a great question for me. I love it, and it just prompts so many stories. What does it feel like when your heart and mind are aligned? And at the risk of going too sideways, I'll tell a side story on that one. First one is it feels amazing, and secondly, it's something I wasn't even aware was a thing for quite a long time. I didn't really know. Honestly, when I wrote that question, I don't think I fully appreciated what it meant, which is interesting. That just kind of dawned on me. I wrote that question about almost 2.5 years ago, and just dawning on it. The first one is, it's great, being able to get into that centered space of breathing and your mind and your heart, and through breath, being able to get them in synchronicity. And that's kind of what it means to me about having them aligned. I first really, even though listening to this on podcasts and meditations, I didn't understand a practical application until I was in a small pen, a round pen with a donkey named Henny, and I was in a equine retreat, really an equine retreat where you get in a pen with horses and donkeys and mules, and try to form a connection with them. And they are such amazing animals because they have this huge electrical fence, if you will, around them, and they can feel your heart and mind aligned or not aligned. And if you aren't aligned, you cannot approach them, you cannot communicate with them in an effective way. So what this retreat was about was teaching you to align your heart and mind, and then being able to approach the animal in a way that they would feel that, and you could see the difference. At the end of the 3rd day, I was able to actually get in the ring, and just through my breath work and mindfulness, call the animal to me from across the pen. And with your eyes closed, and to try to do that, and then to feel and hear the animal coming to you through this technique is a powerful experience. So it's funny. That's a great question for me. Wrote it 2.5 years ago, had no idea what it meant other than hearing it on some podcasts. Over time, learned a little bit more, and then I really had a practical experience. Lauren, what about you?
So that's really interesting to me, particularly. I had a thought, and then you started talking about the retreat, and I have a vast experience in the equestrian world.
Okay.
My only hobby for the time I was 10 until I was 52 was riding horses.
Oh my goodness.
And there is a connection, and it's a mind and body connection that you have to make with a horse. There's no time when you're with a horse to be thinking about a bill you didn't pay, the grass you didn't cut. You
No.
just totally have to be focused on where you are and their heartbeat will actually slow our heartbeat down when you're with
Yeah.
them. It's a very fulfilling connection between I love dogs and cats, but there's something special about a horse that you
Yeah.
really connect. On a more practical, the first thing I thought of when you brought it up was how in my current career, my heart and mind are aligned.
Oh, I love it.
Shared earlier, I've had many career paths that I did because that was what was there to do to
Yeah.
provide for my family. And what I do now, helping business owners, it's my heart. I want to help them. I want them to avoid some of the mistakes and challenges that I faced, and find windows and doors to make life better for a business owner. So in what I do now, I love. I would love to be able to have more time for my hobbies, but I probably will never retire from this because I love what I do.
That's the true. I mean, that's really, how do you know when you found your purpose? How do you know when you found your calling, something you love to do? When you can see, oh, I could do this when I'm 80.
Right.
I'd be happy to be scheduling these calls when I'm 75. This would be
Right.
fun. Yeah, I
Right.
got too much to
It's not
share.
work. It's not work. Right.
Yeah, it's not work. It's not work. It's fun, and it's a chance to connect with humans, and I think you've got a service heart, so that kind of will come through for your work. That is, I love the fact that I shared that. I wasn't going to, I thought the equine story might be a little long to share, but I got it out in a pretty short time, especially for my own storytelling. But I love the fact that we're a horse person for 40 something years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a whole part of that industry that I kind of participate in a little bit, the join up idea that
Okay.
there's ways to make horses join up with you and want to serve you and want you to be the boss of the herd and want you to give them guidance. And so many times horse issues are because the human is not giving them the leadership that they need. And that's reflected in everything, in business. If you don't give your people, your staff, your clients, your customers, the leadership that they're looking for, they're disruptive.
Yeah, they're just, yeah. It reminds me, I had a guest on, Jim Huling, one of my early guests on the show, and he wrote a book that was with Franklin Covey. It's still with Franklin Covey, top seller. And one of the snippets that I took from the episode was his discussion around accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, what a tough leadership skill, because it's not an easy skill to employ.
Yeah.
With people, holding them. I'm sorry, it was accountability, right? I'm sorry, it's accountability, and just so hard to hold people accountable without looking like you're the bad person.
Right.
And it's like another one of those skills that's really hard to manage, to get through. And that is what's being a leader, right? Is holding people accountable for what they're capable of.
Right. Right. And for me, having employees and accountability of employees has always been a real challenge to me, because I'm sensitive to the challenges we have in their day-to-day life. But as a business intermediary, when I'm dealing with a client, I'm so focused on, I have to make them accountable so that I can do for them what they want me to do for them, that I don't struggle with it at all. I can be very forceful. I can be very organized about it because I know that I'm working for their best interest. And maybe now I'm thinking out loud, maybe that's where the disconnect is with an employee. Am I wanting them to be accountable for my success and the company's success, or for their success? Yes, I do want them to be successful, but where I am now, it's a little different place. And I like it a lot better. I don't like having all those employees.
I can see that. I can see the upside to that, especially having managed, quite a lot of people and being on my own for the last couple of years. It's different. It's different. I do enjoy the coaching and mentoring, which I've now replaced. I found some people to coach and mentor, but without having the overhead of people where it's painful and it's work, right? That part of being a leader is work. Tell us a little bit about we talked offline, I was looking at your profile, and, you've had a lot of man jobs, as we were talking, right? I was saying, you're in Mississippi, taking on, demolition jobs, auto parts stores. I'm looking through and I was thinking, who is Lauren? Because, boy, you're awfully brave. And it's not like you're doing this in New York City in the 80s, you're in Mississippi. So it's even a little tougher, I think, still for the socialism for feminism to kind of catch, not too far behind the curve, but still.
Yeah. Well, maybe. I think that you grow where you're planted. I was originally from Maryland, and one of the advantages of the university that I went to in Mississippi, we talked about that was Mississippi University for Women, was to help women in the South become all that they could be, whatever that was, more than just the little wifey. More so I had that background from a larger city and saw more women doing things, and then moved to the South and was surrounded by women that they wouldn't just want to be teachers. They wanted to be college professors. They didn't want to be just nurses. They wanted to be physicians.
Be the doctor.
Right. So that, kind of supported that idea that there's nothing I can't do. It might be uncomfortable. A man might be better at it, but I can outwork a lot of people.
I love that.
And that can go a long way. And I quickly found out, particularly in my auto parts career, they didn't care if I didn't know, as long as I told them I didn't know, and then I'd go find out. And there was a way to find out the answer to every question. So I learned early in my business career, you don't have to know everything. You have to know how to find out what you don't know, and you have to be honest about what you know or you don't know.
That's some powerful wisdom right there. Being honest about what you know and don't know, and then getting the answer, because it's fine. You can always find the answer.
Right. In today's world with Google, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I've often said that I'm glad Google didn't exist when I was a young person, because I love to read, and I think my brain would have exploded when I was that young to have access to as much information as young people have today.
Was there an advantage to being a woman at times?
So I was accused of that oftentimes, and I'm very resentful of that. For in the auto parts business, I'd walk into a shop and they'd say, "Of course, the guys are going to talk to you."
Yeah.
But then were they going to buy anything from me? Maybe not. I might get that first.
You get the door open sometimes, right? Yeah.
But then you had to go from there. I was doing business with a large manufacturer at one time, and the guys that were buying from me, they would pull out a drawer in their filing cabinet where all these women had sent them sexy pictures. And, when are we going to get that from you? Well, I was a young mother, pregnant, barely had my hairbrush going in and out of those days. I'm like, guys, that's not my thing. I'm here to sell you stuff and provide a service for you.
Yeah. So you can go talk to more pinups. Let's make you some money so you can find more of those.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, I did have experience a couple years ago with some gentlemen from overseas, and some of the overseas cultures are very harsh. I was actually told at one convention to have my man come speak to them, and it was just a business partner, and it was difficult to swallow. At that particular convention, there was about 300 men and 3 women, so that was definitely a man's world. I didn't like that at all. I was very frustrated. It was very dismissive. There was really no way to get around it. I just had to kind of say, okay, I'll send the man in.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I'll send my 22-year-old clerk in to take care of it.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll know more than I know.
That's right.
What are you doing now? Maybe share with us a little bit about what you're doing now.
Sure, Ken. Currently, I'm a business intermediary, and I do mergers and acquisitions, and I advise business owners on how to make a plan, or how to figure out where they are now, make a plan to go forward. Sorry about that. And it's been a perfect fit for me because of all the businesses that I've owned and operated over my career. Mm-hmm. I can relate to owners of businesses of most any size. So people come, mostly we do referral business. been doing this for 15 years now. So my previous customers tell people, or we sell them a business and they come back to us, they want to change career paths and go a different direction. But we do valuations, we do everything highly confidential. We take businesses to market, we find buyers, we look for businesses for our qualified buyers to purchase. It's every transaction is different. Every transaction is a challenge. Every transaction has a large emotional component in it, which maybe it helps being a woman because I can be a little more empathetic to many of the gentlemen that are transitioning out of their businesses. Our baby boomer, I think, Ken, you and I are both baby boomer generation. There's a large portion of us that are exiting businesses.
Yes.
So not only do I have the empathy, I'm in the same age.
Yeah. You can relate. Yeah.
That they're in. One of my sons is a business partner with me. And of course, he's quite younger, but he says, he's grown up in a business. He's grown up watching how business works. So he can relate even though he's young. So you take what you have and you use that to connect. I want people to trust me, use me as their trusted advisor, and feel comfortable that I'm out there for their best interest. If all they need to know is a report card of where they are now, that's fine. They want to think about selling 5 years from now, that's fine. But let's begin to figure out what the plan is, because every business owner is going to exit their business one of three ways. They're going to die, they're going to be disabled, or they're going to sell it. You buy insurance, why would you not have a plan on what to do with the most valuable assets you probably have that you've devoted 20, 30 years to, not have a plan what to do in case you get sick or hurt, or Lord bless you if you pass away and you leave a spouse and children with no plan in place.
How about divorce? Is that the fourth way?
Divorce, yeah.
But just financial, like unseen financial, maybe it falls under another category, a larger, it's interesting the way you say that. I look at my brother and he's got a financial business that he built, financial planner, really an asset manager for people.
Right.
And 20 something years building it. And within a smaller, lesser known company. So the systems and everything are within that, and the assets and people's contracts, the client's contracts. And so as he goes to wrap it up, he spent quite a bit of time trying to pass it on to people within the network, within that system, within that company, because it's transferring the clients is quite easy. If you change firms, they've got to sign all the new documents. And so he spent, I think it was a frustrating 2 years with a couple of different partners and unable to get out. And in a casual conversation, I found out that, you can actually sell it to somebody else, but you got to pass on, you have to sign over these other documents. And I'm like, well, I was thinking, why didn't you do that before? You'd have found a way better fit, a lot easier, like someone who would have been wooing you.
Right.
Felt to me like he was wooing the partners all the time. And they were all very very sketchy, very iffy. All the deals always sound very iffy to me. So, knowing that you could find a much bigger opportunity. And I think that's an idea where he could have used a consultant, right? He could have used a third voice, a second voice for someone to kind of talk to, but that's been through this.
Right. And because I do this, I subscribe, and of course I have experience in many industries, and I subscribe to information on industries that maybe I don't touch on very often. And I'm also part of what we call a best practices group. And it's a group of about 25 business intermediaries across the United States and in Canada. And we get on the phone once a month and we can trade information. If I have a CBD or a deal, I'm going to call the guy in Colorado and say, handle it for me. There's a guy in Florida that handles anything in the construction industry. He's a specialist. Another one that just does dental practices. So even if they don't take the deal, they'll walk me through the deal because I can walk them through things that I've walked through. So that's a big advantage that even though I'm an independent, I have access to the brain trust.
A brain trust. Lauren, let's grab a question out of the jar for you. Where it's like almost like a perfect timing. Let's see where this bounces the conversation into what corner. Okay, here we go. What person has had the greatest impact on your life so far?
Ooh.
What person? I think it's a great episode or great, for playing along for people listening. What person has had the greatest impact on your life so far?
Wow, that's a biggie.
Hope mom and dad aren't listening.
Mom and dad passed away, sadly, but they did have a big impact on my life, and my children have had a big impact on my life.
Hmm.
They're both entrepreneurs. They're both independent business people, and it's been quite interesting to watch their progression through the
Yeah.
same struggles and challenges. Um, I was briefly married to the most wonderful man in the world who passed away, and I feel like he had just a ginormous impact on my life. It was someone that was an unusual gentleman that was totally supportive of me just as I am, but always wanting to help me do better in whatever way he could. And it's a heart thing. It's definitely a heart thing. Sadly, he passed away, so didn't get to enjoy that wonderful relationship for as long as I would have liked. But I think he was a huge, beyond my children, I think he was the second biggest impact on my life.
It's interesting to hear that because it does remind you the smallest interactions with people around us can have an impact, a lasting impact, and how important every interaction with people can be.
Right.
So if somebody you're married to for a short time and how many years later you can still think of them in that way,
Right.
just reminds us that yesterday or the day before we could have really touched somebody's life, even temporarily, momentarily, for a couple of days or a few hours. It's the importance of being a good human.
Yeah. You never know. I was speaking to a young person this weekend. So I'm a bicyclist is my hobby these days because I had to quit falling off horses. And I was coming back from a cycling race with a woman in her 40s. And I said to her in one of our conversations, I said, you don't have to be responsible for other people's emotions. And she paused for a moment and she said, where did you get all this wisdom from? Is there a book I can read or something? I said, no, I'm 20 years older than you. And I learned all this stuff by living, and you will too. Out of self-protection and self-defense, you learn these lessons on how to be your best self. Hopefully you learn these lessons on how to be your best self.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like some lessons I don't learn very quickly, and other ones I do learn a little bit more quickly. But that is a hard lesson in life to learn.
Yes, it is.
Especially if you're a parent, because when you're a parent, you are you are responsible for your children's kind of emotional well-being for so long, and then there's that period of time where you want to be, but you can't be. You can't be driving it, right? You can't be the fixer, as they mature and they have to manage their own emotions. And then ultimately coming to the place where, boy, that's tough as a parent, right? Watching on the outside of that, and being there for him, but you can't be responsible for it.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
I sometimes describe myself as I'm a recovering fixer and a recovering workaholic.
Well, I don't know about the recovering part. You don't seem to be doing very good at that. You seem to be relapsing quite often.
Yeah, I do, but I readdress it every morning when I get up.
I love that. I'm struggling. That's my number one struggle, and I'm committed to keep doing it. What's the biggest change you've seen in this kind of exiting? When you started the business, how many years now have you been doing this?
15 years.
15 years, right? 15 years. Biggest difference in the last 15 years?
So when I first got in the business, the access to capital was very difficult to get, and it made it very difficult to put a deal together because the sellers needed to be willing to be a significant portion of the financial equation. And then as our economy got better and better and more money became available through some SBA expanded their programs. Then we were kind of in a heyday for a while. Now we're not really sure where we are. SBA loans are being at 10, 11% from the local lenders, which you have to have some healthy cash flow for that. SBA has made some guideline changes that have helped and will help with the economy, but there's more and more of this baby boomer generation that need to do something. So again, we're going to be swinging back to some owner involvement in the financial equation to get the owner the maximum proceeds for his business so he or she can move on to their next phase of life. I think people are a little more educated, but they still don't understand that they need an exit strategy. I didn't. I feel like that's my mission, to get out there. And even if they don't do anything, at least they've been told. They heard it somewhere that they better think about what's going to happen. I've run across, I've done deals where the owner was dying of cancer. I've done deals where the husband was a dentist and he died, and helped the wife do something with the practice. Those are not fun. They're not fun for anybody. A lot of that can be alleviated if some planning is put in place in front, and it's not expensive. So just wish people would think about it more.
How much value do you lose when that happens? When you're behind the eight ball, so to speak, in that situation?
Well, you can lose a lot of value. That individual that was dying of cancer, the buyer that bought that business never let the seller's illness impact the price. And I will honor him for the rest of my life that he did not devalue the company because the owner was passing away. He paid the value like the owner was going to still be around. And it was worth that. Because the owner was not absolutely necessary for the operating of the business. So that's the first steps that owners need to take, is not be the do all, one all of the business.
Ooh, that's great. Now that's great advice right there, right? Is to make sure you're replaceable, just like everybody else.
Yes. That's very important.
Interesting. What's the latest deal you're working on that you can tell us about?
Oh, so we have a 3-unit franchise in the food industry that we just put out to market. That should be nice for the right buyer. There seems to be a power of 3, whether it's a restaurant or a franchise or an auto parts store or you name it. It seems like when you get the 3, that you then have enough cash flow to get some management in place, to get some processes in place, to be able to afford professional advisors in your business operations. One operation works well. A lot of people die at phase 2. If they make it through 2 and get to 3, it seems to be a place where they can then grow significantly from there once they get to that 3 number. We like to see when people are able to get to the 3.
That's a great metric. It makes a lot of sense. And I love these little kind of almost like business colloquialisms, right? The magic of 3.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's also like the 3rd generation of a family business. The opposite. It's the opposite of a 3rd generation family business.
The 3rd generation often is just the business collapses. If you read business books, you hear that they collapse. And I just was listening to one of my members of my brain trust this morning who was talking to the latest, greatest SBA insight. And the current numbers are 76% of new businesses fail in the first 24 months. We were talking about it in perspective. Do we all sell businesses that are not new, that are not destined to fail? And we were wondering why the SBA is loosening the requirements to lend money to startups when we know that 76% of them are going to fail when people are using their own money. If 76% of them fail when people are bootstrapping out of their own pocket, what's going to happen when the government gives them that money to do that startup? Do we think the failure rate will go down? Unlikely.
Not by much of a margin.
Yeah. So although we want startups to be able to get money, we're wanting more money to get to the people that are successful, that are employing people, that are
paying taxes.
raising
Yeah.
the tax basis. Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's get them. Let's let them grow and flourish, because that's good for the economy.
Biggest mistake you see with people that come to you? Is it waiting too long, or just maybe a business mistake? Could be just you look at the kind of a common theme. You go, oh man, I wish.
So here's another one of those little tidbits. And I heard this and it holds so true. I was part of a business network, international BNI. Anybody
Oh
that's
yeah.
networking has probably heard of BNI.
Yeah.
And one of their truisms is you go to BNI to work on your business because you spend all the rest of your time working in your business. And that's the number one mistake that I see business owners making, that they're so consumed by working in their business that they never work on their business. And if they just found 30 minutes a week to get up in a helicopter and look at their business and lay out a plan, then they'd be much more successful. And in that helicopter time, they'll see they need a plan, that they need a broader management staff, that they need someone that can toe in for them when they go on vacation. I think that's probably the biggest mistake, but it's hard when you're running your own business. It's demanding. It's so demanding. And most business owners are very secluded. They don't get to talk to other people that are having the same pain points or can maybe give them suggestions. So, I'm a lifelong learner, and many business owners are too. The ones that are lifelong learners, they tend to do better because they hear about the things that work, and they get to read about the things that work and the things that don't work to avoid.
Yeah, I'm joining a solopreneurs podcast or just an information meeting next week. And I saw that, and it's like, oh yeah, I've been that person. Wish I had the helicopter ride a few times.
Right. And I know I've been in situations with some of my businesses that I was so busy I couldn't figure out when I could have the time to even teach somebody what to do when I wasn't there. So it is a difficult transition to make, and I certainly understand that. The second biggest mistake that small businesses make is running their business for tax minimization, not paying their full load of taxes, thinking that that's cost effective. And it is until you go to sell. If I can get you a 3 or a 4 time multiple of your bottom line, but you've reduced your bottom line by 40%, you start doing those numbers. It's a huge difference in what I can get you in that business, because you have gotten the benefit of those tax minimization steps that you've taken before, whether it's something as simple as purchasing tickets to the Saints game, or putting all your travel on your business, and minimizing that bottom line number. When most businesses are sold on some multiple, and 3 is about the lowest any of them are going to go. So you give up a lot of money doing that in the long term.
Oh, that's an interesting. I never would have thought of that. I never would have thought of that. You're trying to, because it's a multiple of top line or just bottom line, really.
Bottom line. So there's industries people look at the top line, but only if the bottom line makes sense. If you sell $10 million of stuff a year, but only make $10 at the end of on the bottom line, it's still not attractive. Sounds like a lot of work for a lot of risk.
Yeah. Unless you see some, a lot of personal expenses run. Even then, it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
That's interesting. There'll be a balance there to achieve, I would imagine. And maybe some years are better, maybe towards the end of at the end of it, you want to go ahead and start paying those, show some income.
Clean up your books. That's what we call it.
Clean up or maybe, maybe it's align the books, right, to what is more a true reflection of the business.
Right. Yeah. I've had business owners say, well, if they'll just sit outside, they'll see how many cars come in and out. Well, no.
If they'll just sit outside, it doesn't work like that. They're in Miami. They're not coming to sit outside.
Yeah.
Exactly. Lauren, let's try another question.
Sure.
I got one right on my finger. Well, you kind of talked about being a human. How can we help people open their hearts?
Ooh. I
Being-
think by making conversations a safe place. I think that's really important. And I find women in my community talk about that a good deal, that we need a safe place. We need to be able to talk about things that are happening without any judgment, without any preconceived notions, and just make it a safe, confidential, just like when I'm dealing with business owners. It's whatever you tell me, it's confidential until you tell me I can release it. This is a safe place. You tell me tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then let's talk about it. Let's not judge it right away. Let's talk about it and see where we really are.
Yeah, I think that you're right. That if I feel safe, then I'm more inclined to be more. The safer, the more open.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great concept, right? To think of women in business, and then where do they go? So you talk about you could look at the men's business, trying to who do they talk to? There's a lot of traditional ways and places that you'd go, right?
Yeah.
The clubs.
I've spoken at the Biloxi Men's Club here in Biloxi, Mississippi. Yeah. And had a great time, and I had a lot of feedback from them. I got a lot of referrals, but I cannot be a member. It is truly the Biloxi Men's Club. Now we have our chamber has a women's portion of the chamber. We have women entrepreneurs in business, but the guys can come. They just don't. But the Biloxi Men's Club, women are not invited. They let me come speak, but I can't come back.
I love that. You can be a speaker,
yes,
but you can't be a member.
That's right. And we had a lot of fun with that. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, I sometimes, like, for me, it's let the boy, let them have a boys' club. If you want to have a girls' club, you have a girls' club.
Right.
I don't need to know what's going on in the girls' club.
Right.
I don't want to know. You go have fun. Go do girl stuff.
Right. Yeah, they want to talk golf and hunting and. I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. You want to have a teachers' club, teachers of of the west side of Mississippi. You go be you. Go have fun.
Right.
I don't think we need to bust down all the doors, unless there's, I'm sure there's some logical reasons, but I still like some of that old traditional stuff, here. Those are like good, like a Biloxi Men's Club, and they're like, yeah, we're not changing.
Yeah.
There was a club in Los Angeles, the Jonathan Club, and for many, many, many years that would have been a men's club only. And I think just because it was a general business club, and it wasn't, I don't think it ever said men's club. And they had families, and of course they'd have date nights or whatever, but it was generally a men's. It was generally a men. I think only men could be members. You could bring your wife, your spouse, your friends, but membership. And a good friend of mine, she was one of the first. She was one of the first women in. She's a
and I don't have a problem with it, because I think men struggle more with being open with each other and being transparent and opening up to their pain points in their lives. And if being in an all men's group makes that easier for them, makes it easier for them to form lifetime friendships and deep friendships, then I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Women, we gab on the phone with ease to our confidants and our friends.
Yeah, I think sometimes, though, I think sometimes men, we never even in those environments, I don't know, the lifelong friendships and everything else, yes, but how deep we don't get to the same level of personal stuff and vulnerability. I feel, I'm going to be sexist, but I'll be sexist. I don't think men are as good at it as women are.
Yeah, vulnerability was the word I was looking for earlier. Once you're vulnerable with people, though, you find out that they're walking the same walk you're walking.
Isn't that the best part? Is that we all have the shield up, right? We all have the shield up, and I found this with my JAR podcast, traveling and meeting people, and it didn't matter what kind of place I was coming to, and we didn't curate the guests. So I went to $1 million homes, and I also went to halfway houses where people were coming out of jail and waiting for an opportunity to get into an apartment. And it didn't matter. All humans. I mean, I could take one interview or the other interview and show you, if I change the backgrounds, you might not know whether that person had money or not,
Right.
whether they were successful or not. When you hear the story, the personal story,
Right.
We're all vulnerable.
Right. And every socioeconomic level has its own challenges.
Absolutely.
And once you interact with them enough, you learn that there's challenges that wealthy people have that poor people don't have. There's challenges that whites, that women, that blacks, that immigrants. There's challenges, and then you layer in there's illnesses and sicknesses and divorce and relationships that we all have in common.
Yes.
We all have challenges that we're dealing with every day and every week. And you just have to. I've learned at my age now to be so grateful when things are good and when things are happy and when things are aligned. That I live in the most beautiful part, I believe, of the United States here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. I light up every day when I go drive along the beach or go into the forest on my bicycle. And the weather is beautiful most of the time. I feel so lucky. I almost want to pinch myself. As versus I'll be talking to somebody in Wisconsin about their business and there's still snow in June.
It's a real thing. Weather is a real thing. I like what you said about, the gratefulness, one comment that I love that I've heard recently, that you can't hold anger or depression and also hold on to gratefulness at the same time. So if you are feeling down, if you're feeling, upset, a little depressed, boy, find a few things to be grateful for, be present. And you can't hold those two thoughts.
Yeah.
That they can't fit in the same space. There's only one. So, go back to grateful.
My late husband, the week before he passed away, there was a small group of us gathered, and he made he spoke to us for a few, he liked to speak. And he spoke to us, and the main point that I remember and that he said is, my pile of gratitude is piled up so high it's falling over.
Oh,
and and I may not be here much longer, but I want everybody to know that I have loved my life. I've loved the gifts that I've been given and the life that I've been allowed to live. And it's just blowing up. It's just falling over. I have so much gratitude. Like what a thing to aspire to at near death, to be
even though his life's being taken away.
Right.
Sounds probably cruelly, in a cruel way.
Yeah.
But yet he can sit there and because then, he can't be sad, right? He can't be depressed. If he's grateful, he's just, his heart's, that's a beautiful heart right there.
Yeah, it certainly was.
And you talk about the heart and breath aligned. If you've got that kind of gratefulness, right? You've got your mind, your heart, your breath, everything is working.
Yeah.
Everything is really working. What do you see yourself doing in, 5 years, 10 years? What's your life like?
So when I began my practice as a business intermediary, I did what's called Main Street businesses exclusively, those are the businesses that your friends and relatives probably own in your neighborhood, your liquor stores and that sort of thing. And then the last couple of years, been moving up into the lower middle market because, like I said, I'm a lifetime learner. So I like moving up, and that's a little, doesn't take as much time. I don't need as many clients. It's a long runway for me to get paid.
Longer runway, yeah.
But the checks are bigger when they come through, and I believe that's where my practice is moving to. Now, if someone comes at me and they really need me in a main street, I'm there for them for sure. And of course, my son is in the practice, and he's not real comfortable with those long runways. He likes the shorter, quicker turns. The practice does both, but I'm enjoying the challenge of learning more and more about the lower middle market, which it's a different ball game. But I do enjoy it a lot.
Especially you said you start getting 3 franchises under one family name, one owner. That starts to become a real business.
That one's still a Main Street.
It's still Main Street for you, okay?
Yeah. The kind of the delineation in my mind, and we don't all agree on that. But when a business exceeds $5 million in value, then you start
Okay.
getting into lower middle market. When it starts exceeding about 60 million in value, then it goes up in the true middle market, where you start talking investment bankers and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So any business worth 60 million down is within
It's going
our
to be
wheelhouse.
it's going to be your sweet spot, your wheelhouse.
Right. The people are a little more professional. They have a little more understanding of how business works, and don't feel like I have to do quite as much mentoring education wise. So because I'm not doing as much of that, I've joined an angel fund, which is a fund of local business people and individuals that fund people that are at the beginning of their careers to help them get to the next level. And there's a good bit of mentoring involved in that. When we decide as a group to invest in a young entrepreneur, then we mentor them too, to make sure our investment's successful, and because we want them to be successful too.
Yeah, I'm sure you believe in you buy into somebody you believe in. And any good examples of your latest investment or your latest little endeavors?
So we've made a couple investments. I don't know how much I can talk about them though.
Yeah.
A lot of that's pretty confidential.
Yeah, some of that's still.
But we've made 3 investments in the last 6 months, and I have great hopes that all 3 are going to do quite well. One of them's in the software. Actually, 2 of them are in the software industry, and software flips tend to have really high multiples.
I was going to say, if those go, you're in a good spot.
Right. And the federal government has come out with a program that they're matching funds for some of these things that are going on. And I don't know how it works in every state, but in Mississippi, we have a centralized location that's going to handle those funds. So any investment we make in a young business, the state will match our investment, and then any money the state makes, they'll reinvest. They'll use it. It'll just keep rolling into the next deal,
into the next fund.
So,
somebody
So Mississippi. Not so much here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, but throughout Mississippi, we're always looking for things to keep our young people here. Bring more technology, bring more higher wage workforce items into our state. So this is a really good thing for us. We're really excited about it.
Well, and I think it's a great call. I mean, climate-wise, it seems to be a very great time to do it, right? You've got business-wise, there's a lot of states that are not making themselves look very welcoming.
Right.
And, I think Mississippi's once people see how beautiful it is and how diverse it is, from the river, the river to the ocean, to the, right. To almost up to the mountains, sort of, you got some hills.
Well, yes, we got some hills in North Mississippi. I rode a bicycle on them the last couple.
Yeah, you got, you got a little bit of everything going on in Mississippi. And, I was just talking yesterday. I forget it was. Somebody asked me a question about one of my guests, and this is twice in 2 days. Curtis Williams, and man, unbelievable guy. Woke up. He's a guest of mine, and in Mississippi, and he woke up at 4 a.m. to cook ribs for me. We had the interview at 8 a.m. I showed up at his place at 8 a.m. This little rec center he was starting as a partnership with him and a couple of friends in a small community. And what a guy! Best barbecued ribs I ever had. Can't remember the smoke he was using. I got to go back to him, but it was something like a pine, or it was like something you never use. And he said the reason people don't use it is because if you use it wrong, it'll the soot will get out and ruin the meat.
Oh, wow.
And he was saying, so it's the best flavor, but it's the most difficult to control. And he was saying, but I got the secret, Ken. I got the secret. like a good Mississippi guy, right? He's like, don't worry, I got this.
I got this.
And oh man, I went back the next day to hang out with him and his partner, just sit around and talk for a couple hours. Just the most wonderful human. Anyway, so I like the South. I went to school in South Carolina.
Okay.
I'm a fighting Gamecock, and went to Mississippi State for a football game one weekend. We drove from South Carolina to follow the Gamecocks to play Mississippi's great frat row and all that craziness of a football game. Goodness gracious, barely remember the game, but a lot of fun back in the day. Let's do one more question for, and then see where we go from
Sure.
there. We're kind of we're almost at the hour. Okay. Coming from a single mom, multiple business owner, this will be a good one for you. Lauren, do you struggle to keep negative thoughts out of your mind?
Well, not really.
I had that feeling that might be part of the answer was, no, not really.
No, well, because I learned a long time ago, again, you don't know how things are going to impact you. As a young mother, young married person, I joined Amway, and I learned
Awesome.
I learned how positive thinking and surrounding yourself with positive people will have a positive impact on your life. And I took that lesson, and that lesson has been with me my whole life. If people are negative, I don't want to be around them. I just, that's toxic. I don't need that in my life. And everybody has challenges, and it's fine. We can talk about a challenge. But when someone just is dismissive and, like my father was for the last 8 or 10 years of his life, is like, Dad, stop. I can't let all that come in.
I can't let that energy come in.
Yeah. I need, there's always a way. There's always a way to make things better. There's always a different way to look at things. Sometimes the circumstances don't change, just the perspective that you take on them, it changes, and that makes the difference.
That is beautifully said. Things don't, you may not be able to change the circumstance, but you can change where you're standing, how you view it.
Yeah.
That's really, it's funny you mentioned Amway and learning the positivity and how to do sales, right? And how to overcome objections and negative customers. I always said that I was, one of the luckiest things I did was get into sales, and driving around Los Angeles with tapes of motivational speakers in my car.
Yeah.
Cassette tape back, because just to show what a boomer I am, cassette tapes, not 8 tracks.
Right.
I'm not that old. I mean, although we had 8 tracks, but really driving around listening to motivational speakers, motivational tapes, and, being in sales and surrounding yourself with positivity, and your life is spent how to overcome objection, how to overcome adversity, how to, even though you're behind your target by 60% at the end of the month, you can do it. How do you do that? How do you plan? I mean, sales is such a powerful, great education for people to learn some of those things. Even when times are tough, you still, you still can go forward, and it's never over.
Yeah. And I'll interject here from that perspective that, of course, obviously I've done a lot of sales in my career, and I think I'm pretty good at it. But in my current career, I want to make people comfortable that I'm not trying to sell them something. People sometimes equate me to a real estate person that's going to sell them a house. They think I'm going to sell them a business, or I'm going to make them sell their business. And I don't want to do anything that's not good for all parties involved. I tell clients right off the bat, if you want to get an excessive price or you want to take advantage of somebody, I am not your girl. On the other hand, although I don't consider myself a salesman anymore, I am a negotiator. I try to negotiate a positive outcome for the people involved. Even I'm teaching negotiation classes now. But it's a mind swing, and I hope that it kind of flows down to other things. I think many salesmen would feel better about what they do if they saw what they do as a negotiation. Even a car salesman, which we all go, car salesman. But what if you looked at a car salesman as someone that negotiated with you to get you in the best vehicle for your life choices?
Yes. Yeah, and it's up to you.
That's fun. That's fun.
It's a little more of a game, right? You know their role, and your job is to negotiate.
Right. right.
A good
To
deal. A
get
good
them
deal.
what they need and want. Not so. So it's I think as we get older, this is easier. From what's in it for me? How can I make more money? How can I sell more stuff so I can have more money? Do we get a little older, maybe a little more comfortable? Now my focus can always be on them. What's best for them? What's good for them? And we know in the end that comes back to you.
It's
But
always good for
but
everybody.
it
Yeah.
takes some wisdom and years and gray hairs to really believe and see it in action, that the good things do come back to you. When you treat other people well, it does come back to you.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's there's a reason why those phrases are in every scripture, every religious text around, right? Treat others like you want to be treated.
Right.
It's written in every sacred text
Yes.
in some way, shape, or form. It's a real thing. Lauren, how do people, maybe some closing thoughts first, and then, maybe blend in there too, how people find you. And again, one more time, maybe, is who you're looking for. Who's that great client that, should come find you? But
Sure.
first, maybe some closing thoughts, and then wrap all that other part in.
Yeah. So closing thoughts. This has been fun. I've really enjoyed this. I find myself responding to everything in the humanist from a business perspective, and you actually made me do some human stuff to throw in there too. So kudos to you. Because I tend to be, laser. When I'm at work, I'm at work. My children have learned over the years, don't even talk to mom when she's at work. You have to wait till she's away from work.
Yeah, we gave you some tough questions.
Yeah, but it all does link together.
Yeah.
When you work as much as most of us do, it is a work-life balance. You got to enjoy. You need to enjoy everything you do. You need to work hard to get the success that you ultimately want. So, and then to get in touch with me, so our website is coastalconsult.org. Not consultants, just coastalconsult.org. And you can click there, you can register, you can get some white papers that we have to offer. I will speak to anyone. You can even schedule on my calendar there. I will speak to anyone for 15 or 20 minutes about their business if they just want to explore whether we may be a fit for each other or not. I don't put any bumpers on any of that. Just feel free to schedule a time and I'll talk to you. Now, I won't spend hours, and I can't tell you what your business is worth over the phone. Doctor can't tell you what's wrong with you by taking your temperature. It takes more than that. But if we can be of help to you, we're glad to do that. I have someone's calling this afternoon. They need some help with their QuickBooks. It's 15 minutes of my time that I'm glad to help a business owner that needs a little help. Just feel free to reach out to us.
I love it. Well, Lauren, you've got a great, I said, looking through your LinkedIn is so cute, and to see, looking at that and just going, oh my gosh, who is this person? What was she doing all this time? What was she thinking? Well, as I look from one job to the next, what was she thinking? What was she thinking? So I was excited to hear your story. And really great. You've landed in such a great spot. What a great evolution to kind of roll your career up into and turn that into a gift for other entrepreneurs and solopreneurs.
It has been good. It is good.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah,
Didn't know business brokers existed. I will say that until I became one. I had actually gone to a counselor and had, I had a business fail. I had a huge business fail that was a horrible financial debacle, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And this counselor very wisely said, think about what you like to do, think about what you know, and see if there's a career path there. Well, my first thought was you can't make money teaching people to ride horses. I already knew that. So, what was the second thing? Well, maybe I know a lot about business. Maybe I can help somebody.
Maybe I know a lot about.
And I found out that there was such a thing as business brokers, and there's not very many of us in Mississippi. There's not very many in the Southeast, as a matter of fact. Portland, where you've moved to, there's a good many of them there, and Florida has the largest quantity of business brokers.
Okay, you had a lot of businesses down there too.
Yeah.
Lauren, thanks again so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks everybody for listening and supporting The Humanist. If you're on one of the audio programs and you're catching this after the live show, please do give us a rating. Just drop down and give us a couple stars whenever you feels right, and maybe a sincere comment. Read all those and really appreciate the feedback. So Lauren, stick around for a few seconds and I'll see you on the other side.
All right. Thanks, Ken.
Welcome to the Humanist Podcast. I'm your host, Ken Stearns. Join us on a journey where we unravel the